Aloha! Welcome to the Japan America Society's Summer 2020 Talk Story Series. I'm Reina Kaneko, president of JASH, and in today's talk story, Women Who Lead, Resilience Through Crisis, we will meet two remarkable women, entrepreneurs navigating their companies through the COVID crisis. Amanda Corby Noguchi is the founder and creative director of Under My Umbrella, a communications and event planning company, and co-founder of the Pili Group. Bella Hughes is the president of Shaka Tea, a line of Hawaii-grown herbal teas brewed with mamaki, an ancient super leaf found only in Hawaii. Our moderator today is Barbara Tanabe, owner of Hoakea Communications and JASH board director. We're in for a treat today with this dynamic trio. Let's begin turning it over to you, Barbara.
Thank you very much, Reina, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to women entrepreneurs, and I have found in, decades of working with young women that when a spark hits, women make the best of everything, and I'm really delighted to be able to share with all of you participating in this webinar, the stories behind Amanda and Bella. I'm not going to go into detail on their background because you can find that on the website and you can read it at your leisure. So what I wanted to do first is call on Amanda to talk about how she got her spark and how she started her business. She'll be followed by Bella, and then we're going to do questions and answers. And of course, I get to ask the first question. So Amanda, can you get yourself on the screen, unmute yourself, and tell us about that spark that hit you one day and decided you were going to start your own business? I see you're there, Amanda. Oh, there you are.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I think Josh is controlling it, so I couldn't unmute myself.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Aloha, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll be real honest with the crowd. I have a event and communications company called Under My Umbrella, and also a food group called Pili Group. And I am currently joining you from the EVA campus of Child and Family Service, where we have been setting up for several statewide distributions. So I had a plan of being back to my office and doing my hair and looking my best for this. And in true event style, here I am sitting at a fold-out table in my client's community center, because that's part of event life. So I guess you could say I got to start at what I was doing because I was really drawn to community and supporting them. I went to school to be a documentary filmmaker and got to really get to know communities through making films and working with rural communities. I then took a job with Special Olympics and fell in love with the organization. I volunteered with many organizations, and I felt that there was a missing piece to the success of our nonprofits here, which was someone who could take their events, their outreach, their communication, really to the max capacity, the max level that it could be. And as we all know, within an organization, you're so busy doing the mission of that organization that it's hard to do the outreach to 100% because you're so distracted by what is really your mission work that you're doing and that you should be doing. So I thought, what if we can create a company that gives that kind of support to the nonprofit world? And that's how Under My Umbrella was born. We're now 11 years in business, and we're very proud of that. And we have grown our network to be not just nonprofits, but international businesses, actually. So we've always stuck with events and public relations, but we also have really dove deep into strategy work with both nonprofit and for-profit clients, understanding how to engage in their community in a fulfilling way. And we're really proud to be able to be of service to both the nonprofit and the for-profit community.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And Amanda's also has a good friend and has also inspired Bella Hughes. So Bella, if we can have you get unmuted and video, there you are. And Bella is joining us from Hilo. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much to Josh for putting this together and for everybody to be joining and sharing your time with us today. It's wonderful to share space with Amanda. We've been on a few panels before, and great to have you as a moderator, Barbara.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a little bit about how Shaka Tea came to be. I actually had an entirely different career. I was born and raised on Oahu, raised in Honolulu, and I spent 11 years in art and culture, and I was away from the islands. I lived in the continental United States. I spent 6 years in the United Arab Emirates, and all the time that I spent away from home, I was always interested in art as a vehicle to bring community together and specifically to share stories of Hawaii, because there was a lack of representation globally. So prior to launching Shaka Tea, I co-founded the Honolulu Biennial, now Hawaii Contemporary. And it was really in my life and art that the idea for Shaka Tea came to be. What I realized was whether I was at a conference in Herbally Rock and talking about gender equality and the power through art, curating a show, the first show on contemporary Kanaka Maoli art at the Smithsonian in DC, or taking art collectors to a big art fair, Art Basel, Hong Kong. Everywhere I went in the world, I could find something marketed as like Hawaii, but when you turn over the label, most of the products on the market didn't have any authentic ties to the islands. They didn't have ingredients from the islands, or they weren't founded there. And fast forward, I moved home in 2016 and simultaneously launched the Biennial and Shaka Tea with my co-founder and my husband, Harrison Rice. And what started initially is just very much like, hey, let's put a great product out that has a hero ingredient. We're brewed with mamaki, which is only found and grown, as you heard in the intro, in Hawaii. It really began the more I learned about where I was from, just how much we need a culture of abundance, and economic abundance specifically, and economic growth became of great interest to me. And really looking into our rich heritage of agriculture and how can you build up the next big global beverage brand and use progressive capitalism as a force for good. So we're really proud at Shaka Tea to have given away 25,000 mamaki seedlings by the end of this year. We pay farmers an abundant price point, and our whole model is we're tapping into the multi-billion-dollar tea market, and we pay an abundant price point, dry the tea here in Hawaii, and we connect local supply to national, and now at the Japanese market, global demand. So we brew it off island, and that means that we have a product that is everyday usage occasion. So most Hawaii products have been very much focused on the premiumization of the Hawaii brand, pretty expensive because everything is done here. We commit to agriculture and economic development with small farmers, and our product in the US continent is $198 to $249 and 139 yen in Japan. So that's a little bit about our story.
Well, we like premium because I think women entrepreneurs are a premium. So Bella and Amanda, let me ask a question that I think everyone is struggling with, and that is the COVID-19 situation. This pandemic has been horrendous on the community, especially on the business community. What I'd like to ask is, how are you taking your business through this COVID period? What have you done differently to survive, and more importantly, to support your employees and the community? So who wants to go first? Amanda, I see you're back on. You want to
Sure.
take it? And then Bella, you can jump in. And if the two of you want to have a conversation, that's good with me too. So go ahead, Amanda.
That's wonderful. And I think for both Bella and I, being how you hear her story of, completely almost jumping careers and what she's doing, we both have a dedication to pivoting and to showing up and filling a need that we see. So for myself during COVID, you would think as an event company, either you're going out of business or you're really reimagining what events and what connection and what experiences look like. So we were very blessed that when everything happened with COVID, we have such a wonderful network and a diverse network that we were really able to engage that network in showing up to fill in the gaps for our community in food service, in supplies, in making sure that we're taking care of everyone and not leaving folks behind. So where I'm sitting right now at Child Family Service, they have been a large partner of ours, and we have partnered with them and our Chef Hui, which is a program my husband and I started that I'll talk a little bit more about later. But we have been doing statewide distributions of supplies, of educational resources. Child Family Service is 120 years old. They've been supporting families in Hawaii for longer than most organizations here. And through their network and our network, we are really able to activate a large group of volunteers and supporters to provide these kinds of services for community. So instead of doing galas and board retreats and things that we would typically be doing, we've partnered together to really look outward to our communities and see how we can support them. I think Jash is another wonderful example of a partner we have who's really been innovative in what they're doing to pivot. So we've been working closely with the Jash Event Committee to reimagine, if you will, what their annual gala is going to look like. And we're really excited to share the news of what that's going to be. It will be a reimagined event that will be kind of a worldwide premiere of what Jash is. So we're partnering to have a 1-hour special that's going to be televised. We're doing really innovative things to still bring in sponsors and to deliver the messaging of Jash to the world. That's another wonderful example of pivoting, and I really applaud the event committee and the staff for thinking outside of the box and taking that to the next level. So we're excited about that as well. But for us, that's always, we're problem solvers. At the end of the day, I'm a professional problem solver. And so we haven't let this pandemic slow us down from a business perspective. We've really said, what skill sets do we have that we can offer to be of service to our community? And I think that's something that I encourage everyone to think about is, in all this world of things being out of our control, if we can focus on what we can control, how we can show up, that's how we're going to uplift our community together.
Thank you, Amanda. Bella.
I loved hearing that, and I can't wait to attend the new format of gala. So you better send me an invite to that so we can get on it. It sounds so much fun. But I really, what resonated, what you said, Amanda, was very much the idea of how can we be of service, having spent like the majority of my adult professional life in nonprofit work, although now we're very much a commercial entity, we're a growing business, we really still come at it as how can we be of service to you through something so humble and simple, a 0-calorie, full-flavored tea. As much as I want to talk about the story of economic abundance, sustainable agriculture nationally, most of our business, probably 95%, is off island. The whole vision always was about agriculture, economic growth here, but really hit that big market to grow a big company. And so, one of the things, and we have a really small team, but we've been very fortunate to be as a high velocity, pretty affordable product, actually growing during COVID. Our same store velocity was up nearly 20%. The past 13 weeks, we were able to make 1 full-time hire. We have an amazing creative and digital marketing manager now based on Maui. We made 3 part-time hires in our drying facility here in Hilo. It's really been down to our team because our team is so small and scrappy. There are 10 of us, 6 full-time, 4 part-time, and everyone's been going after national growth accounts by really that servant leadership. Not saying like, hey, come buy our award-winning fast growth tea. It's like, hey, we know you grocery store, amazing team members are probably overwhelmed. This is the worst pandemic of our lifetime. We're just letting you know we have a full flavor, 0 sugar tea, equitable price point, really important for us in terms of inclusivity, is we've made all our marketing materials also now bilingual. In the United States, obviously Spanish is the second most, spoken language, continental US, so that's available now. And we're reliable partners. If you need an order in a week, we can do that for you. And I really, really just applaud our team, amazing team members they're supposed to be managing just Hawaii or just the West Coast, and they have pitched through that very soft servant leadership style and brought on some incredible accounts during the pandemic that I feel like in reality, if it wasn't the pandemic, I wouldn't even think it's possible to get an entire Whole Foods Rocky Mountain region pitched, launched through cold calling LinkedIn in the past 6 weeks. And our recently promoted Hawaii and now new business development sales manager, she did that. So just really it goes down to our team. They've been amazing.
It's amazing also because you look at some of these long-standing companies like Neiman Marcus or Lord and Taylor, Brooks Brothers, Sears. These are historic names, and they're all going under during this pandemic because they were not able to transform. If you look at your business today, how do you reimagine it going forward? You're going to survive this pandemic because you both have the energy, the thinking out of the box, but what is the post-pandemic world that you imagine that you're going to be working in? Bella, you want to start that?
I do believe it's a kinder world. I mean, I really believe now more than ever, we are a relationship-driven economy, and relationships and trust and really being there for someone. If someone gets back to you 6 weeks late and they say, hey, half my staff has been out with COVID, you're not, you're just completely understanding. So I do believe that this horrific moment in history has made a kinder, more thoughtful, and just relationship-driven business environment. In terms of our specific vertical of beverage, really important for us, and not to get too granular and boring, because I know probably nobody listening and it's from the world of beverage, but it's shifting our distribution model. We've primarily worked with broadline, really big national distributors, and for us to really have market saturation, it's about bringing on direct service distributors, DSD, complement that. And then it goes back to the culture of the team. It was really hard for me, and I'm sure, Amanda, you and probably many entrepreneurs feel this, that when you're an entrepreneur for the first few years, literally you're doing everything, and it's really hard to sometimes bring people on, learn how to trust, but definitely finding that right culture fit beyond just that ability and capacity to do the work, because we're still a very small business.
What about you, Amanda? How do you imagine the post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And for us, I see this as an opportunity for us to really stop and evaluate what we've been doing and why we've been doing it. And not only for our own company, but really that's a service we've been providing to our clients as well, is we've been doing it this way, but why? Is there a better way to move forward? And I think that something like a pandemic really creates this space, and it requires people to get creative, and creativity and re-envisioning and putting a plan in place is what we do as a business. And so we are excited, I think is really the word to use, that we are now going to be able to offer that as part of what we do for our standing clients we have now and for our future clients, is to think outside of the box, to reimagine what things can look like, and to make them better. And I hope that for many people who are listening, that some of the conversations that are going on right now, I would advise that if you're thinking, how can we get things back to the way they used to be? I challenge you to think outside of that and to say, how can we do things different? How can we be more efficient? How can we support working mothers? How can we support our employers and our leadership? And how can we grow new leaders? And what does that look like? And I think that this is a really good time to do that. And for me, it's really exciting.
Well, thank you. You're both forward-looking, but in order to look forward, you have to build on the past. Can you get a little personal here and tell us about your past? What is it? How did you grow up? I mean, what caused you to be in this place today? So if you go back to yesterday when you were toddlers or young girls and young women and professionals starting out, what was it that sparked you to become entrepreneurs and reach the level of success that you have today? So Amanda, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think I believe my brother-in-law Mitchell Noguchi is on the call, and I think he can tell you that I'm stubborn, and I have been since I was a child. And to go a little bit back, I was born and raised in Springfield, Missouri. And I wrote my first business plan when I was 17 years old, which was my plan to move to Hawaii and to be self-sufficient within a year. And that's exactly what I did. I presented it to my parents and I said, I'm going to move to Hawaii. I'm going to be a cocktail server at Duke's, and I'm going to be able to, in a year, pay for my own college tuition, and I will go at the rate that I can afford, because my parents had offered to support me going to the community college. And I looked up how much it costs to go to the community college here at KCC. And it was actually cheaper than the community college was in Missouri. So I thought, I'm just going to go there and I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. I didn't have some grand plan of how exactly it was going to work, but I worked really hard to make it happen. And I think that something that Bella and I would agree to is that it's that drive to persevere. It's the passion about the work that you're doing. It's the connection to people and to community that inspire me to work really hard. And I feel like if it wasn't for that drive and for taking the risk of moving here, I would have probably never started my own company. I didn't have an MBA when I started my company 11 years ago, but I had a lot of experience in the work I was doing, and I saw that there was room for growth. And then I really had a lot of support as well. I had people that I could call on, older women who served as mentors to me, that I felt that I trusted them to help me find the right way. And I learned a lot along the way. And I think we may talk about it later, but I really appreciated early on in my business. I had a client, they were one of my first clients. They were a small nonprofit from Japan, and they taught me a really good lesson, because I, at that time, had only really worked with other haoles, if you will. The majority of my clients were either local Caucasians or folks who had moved here from the mainland and started a business or started a company. And through that relationship with my client, who was from Japan, I learned what building trust looked like, going slow. I mean, anyone who knows me, probably, I move very fast. I plan things very fast. I problem solve. And they really taught me to take the time to build the trust before moving forward. And that actually, it was a fail forward. I failed to do that in the beginning. And I learned the hard way that I was trying to build the house and I forgot to build the foundation of that relationship. And for me, I think that was a pivotal moment in my business, where I realized that doing business with clients from all over the world that's the first step in every single relationship, is building that trust. And that's why now I can do things like these statewide distributions for child family service. And we're not even checking in that much. They just trust us to manage and run these events. So we're able to move most efficiently because we built the trust with them over the past 4 years. And that's something that has been really inspirational to me, is seeing how here, the way we do business in Hawaii, it's all about trust. It's all about building those relationships. And once that trust is there, the sky is the limit.
Well, Amanda, I'm glad you're stubborn. In Japanese, the word is gojo. And the reason I remember that is because that's what my mother said of me. Gojo no ko. So I salute you for your stubbornness. So we'll go to another stubborn lady, Bella. What in the past got you going? And what lessons have you learned from the past?
I grew up just very, very immersed in going to museums and reading a lot. So I would spend a lot of time, especially with my father, at Bishop Museum and at the old Academy of Arts, which now is Honolulu Museum of Art. And I was just always interested through the vehicle of culture, learning about where I was from. On my father's side, I'm fourth generation Kama'aina. And on my mother's side, my mom's an immigrant. She's from Iran. And so I think always what I was meant to do was somehow something that was storytelling. I've been very entrepreneurial since I was young. In high school with my friend Tyler, we started a politically active club. I was very politically active, organizing protests and agitator theater, a conscientious objector to war. But it was really two experiences, if I go down to both in my art and culture life, which largely was quite academic, to now my business life, why I've been an entrepreneur. I'm 33 and I've been formally employed for 6 months of my adult life. It was my high school job. So I taught swimming at Leahi Swim School, and I had the most incredible boss, Lori Comer, amazing business lady. Probably half of Hawaii has learned to swim if you're from Oahu. And she treated people so well and had so much trust, and like had a snack room stocked and was there as a mentor and would go to CPK with you. And, you know, if you did a good job, you got a promotion or a raise. And, you know, I started working there when I was 14, and by like 15 and a half, I was teaching babies how to swim. And the adults kept looking at me like, are you sure you're old enough? So it was that level of trust and just the way she treated people that made such a mark. I don't think, I remember thinking, quite being young and doing a lot of internships, wow, I'm never going to meet anyone like her. And then on the other side, you know, my mother was a flight attendant, and she worked for one of the large US airlines that ended up going bankrupt. And just seeing how she was such a great, you know, team member, so dedicated, such an employee, but one bigger person could control her future. And if her pension would get cut or this, it made me very wary to put my future, regardless if I was in nonprofit work or now progressive capitalism, in someone else's hand. So I think entrepreneurship was going to happen no matter what. Very, very stubborn person, very values driven. So it took me a while to get to business until I learned how business can be a vehicle for doing so much more than only making money. And, you know, I think a lot of the most amazing experiences have been not being afraid to be told no and seeking out really early on incredible mentors. I really just want to honor all the women and men who've come before me. And, you know, I was 22 years old, and I emailed someone who I heard speak who happened to be a former US ambassador and was teaching at Georgetown. And she actually met me, and now we're very good friends. And she was a mentor for a decade, and now is a very good friend when I was in art and culture, in business the same way. And not taking it personal if someone says no, but once people are at the A level of where they are professionally, I find that, you know, they do tend to want to give back. And, you know, even though I'm only 10 steps into the 100-step journey, as much as possible, I'm trying to help mentor, you know, especially women who might just be starting their business. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned on this journey now being in business is you've got to make the sale. So my business was a bit slower to start in terms of the growth I would have liked to see, because I used to really talk about mamaki, my community, pulelehua, and restoring native ecosystem habitat and paying local farmers $20 a pound. And that just doesn't fly on the US continent. That's not necessarily, it's going to make a buyer excited. They want to know your data, how fast you move, how much your growth is, and your no sugar. And so just learning that you can always be your authentic self, but regardless if it's business or nonprofit work, you got to make the sale. So quickly read the room as to what information is going to get you what you want first, and need to get, and you can do that. So that would be what I wish I'd learned a little sooner.
So you're both in business, you're both very successful, and before anyone ever jumps into business, they have to raise capital. Excuse me, I keep choking on that word. They have to raise money. That's a very important first step. So let me ask the two of you, how did you raise money? And how big of a struggle was it? Because you're both young, you're women, and in the old days, young women were considered high risk for capital, for investments in business. So Bella, let's start with you.
Oh, raising money. I have to
Yes.
say, I'm fortunate that my nonprofit life gave me a lot of experience. I raised close to $6 million, and I built a large nonprofit from scratch when I was 20. It started when I was 25. By the time I was 27, it launched. And it was really hard. I was unpaid for the first 2.5 years. I had so many no's. I had so many ridiculous, quite sexist situations. I had one very, very well-known multi-billionaire philanthropist say it can't just be two girls, because there was another young woman that I was working with closely as co-founders on this. But it gave me the ability to story sell. And when you're raising money for a nonprofit, of course, not everyone is gung-ho about contemporary art per se, just like not everyone's gung-ho about keto or mamaki or sustainability, but quickly, again, like learning how to tailor pitches and not taking things personal. And then when I shifted to the, capital raising for my business, I mean, the average VC looks at like 400 decks a year and he makes 5 to 7 investments. The probability is so low that you're going to get it. I recently raised a growth round and I raised it during the pandemic. So that was quite intense. The first checks came in late January, early February, but the bulk, like the big 7-figure money, came in March, April. And one of the things that I've learned through the experience is just statistics wise, I spoke to 87 people for this most recent round to get 6 yeses. And a lot of times, it's great to just be really, really direct from the get-go. Like, is this something you're interested to explore further? So nobody in the culture of politeness, which I think in Hawaii we tend to be quite polite, you might waste a few conversations. So being very direct from the get-go, I recommend doing that. And again, not taking anything personally when you're raising capital.
Well, congratulations. To be able to raise millions is really, really hard. So kudos to you. What about you, Amanda? Raising money, you do it quite well.
Well, thank you. And I think I'll go back to my beginnings as well. So as I'm evaluating myself, I'm seeing a pattern that I'm realizing, and I will share with everyone, which I took a different approach with my business. I approached it kind of the similar way that I approached moving here. I said, this is something I feel really passionate about and I want to do it, but I was very nervous.
Did we just lose Amanda? Amanda, we can't hear you. Your audio. Can you say something? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. There must have been a glitch with my internet. But so when I was starting my business, I really grew it at the pace that I could afford. So I had saved up money from working as a cocktail server while going through college. And I had that really in case I needed it for anything. And I decided to use that small amount of money to help get me off the ground. I worked out of an office in my home. I was my only employee for about 2.5 years. And I really relied on building my reputation through word of mouth. So I took on clients for very little money in order to create a brand for myself and to allow my work to speak for itself. So at the end of the day, I didn't raise tons of money to start my business. I really raised the capital as I went along and grew the business as I went. So currently now under my umbrella, my company I've had for 11 years, I now have 6 employees, and it's something that has taken time and love and patience to grow. But when it comes to fundraising, I typically say we don't do fundraising as under my umbrella. I say we do a lot of things, but we don't do that. But because of the pandemic and Chef Hui, it's a program that my husband and I created to connect chefs to their community and community to the people who grow and make their food. And when the pandemic came about, we went into full fundraising mode for that in order to support that industry. So since the end of March, we've raised over $500,000, and that's thanks to so many of our partners, including our clients, friends, people we've done fellowships with, who have stepped up to support Chef Hui through that. And I think for us, the important part of asking folks for money is showing them how it's being used. And with our Give and Go meal program, which we have been doing since the end of March, we provide chefs with an $8 stipend to make a meal to go to the community. And the chefs we partner with are committed to purchasing local And for us to be able to show our funders that every dollar you spend is keeping a farmer in business, it's keeping a restaurant open, and it's creating a meal that can be served in an unrestricted way to communities that are in need, and to serve them with dignity. And I think that for us, that's really the selling point. So when you think about fundraising, I think it's very important to let your funders know how their dollars are being served and how it's affecting our local economy. And by showing them that, I think that's really where the success of fundraising has come for us in Chef Hui.
Yeah, it's storytelling that shows that the investment that people make is well worth it. It's an investment into the community, not just the business. So let me ask the two of you. Both of you have been able to grow beyond Hawaii, and you're looking at Asia as the potential market. Can I ask why Asia, and maybe why Japan specifically, since we are the Japan America Society? What do you see in Asia as the potential market? So Bella, why don't we start with you?
Well, I have always had an affinity for Japan. I took Japanese for probably 6 or 7 years at Punahou. And I think one of the beautiful things about Japan is each prefecture is known for specialty. And someone who really loves the story selling and that intimacy and the uniqueness of our primary hero ingredient, mamaki, but we have additional products rolling out where we will be incorporating other Hawaii-grown hero ingredients. Japan is a natural market for this, where there is just, first and foremost, there's such a deep tie and cultural exchange between Hawaii and Japan going back well over 100, 150 years. And then furthermore, that prefecture specialty, when we're talking about how mamaki, a stingless nettle, is only found and grown in the Hawaiian archipelago, that every time our small farmer Hui plants mamaki, they're creating restorative native ecosystem habitat because it's the host plant for pulelehua, our endangered pollinator. It's amazing because the audience there, whether it's someone in the media, it's a buyer, they really, really connect at that level. So that, made a lot of sense to go to Japan. But truly from, one of the beautiful things about launching a business in Hawaii, although our general population, 1.3, 1.4 million, is quite small, since, pre-COVID, we very much are a tourism driven economy. Say what you will, when you're launching a product, my husband and I probably have done 1,000 hours of demos the first 2 years of our business. And the beauty of launching in Hawaii is you're getting feedback from customers from all over the world, not just locals. And really, really early on, it was apparent whether we were at a Foodland or a Whole Foods or a Down to Earth, Japanese customers were really, really excited about our teas and our product. And given the long history of tea culture, it made a lot of sense. But this has been very much a long-term relationship driven, which I feel is very much the key of being from Hawaii and at the same time doing business in Japan move for us. I started exploring Japan formally 2 years ago, went on a WUSADA trade mission, found the right partner. He's come to Hawaii now 4 times, four times, because I know one of the things that's really imperative for us is when we do business with people, they really become part of our ohana. And we want to be doing business with them for years to come. But on so many levels, Japan just made a lot of sense, especially within the context of being a tea and then the Hawaii connection.
What about you, Amanda? The Japanese connection.
Sure. So as I mentioned, one of my first clients was from Japan, and that was a great learning lesson for me. And as we've gone on, I think that the Japanese market, we're more about providing a service. I'm not selling anything. So I'm not sending things to Japan, but oddly enough, I do have my number 2 at my company, my event director. Her husband is in the Navy, and they moved to Japan. And we said, you know what? We have several clients that are from Japan. We'll just open an office in Japan, and we'll see how it goes. And it's worked really well. She's been there for about 1.5 years now. And we are about creating experiences, as I mentioned earlier. And at the end of the day, I feel that what our visitors from Japan are looking for is really an authentic experience. Our tourists are no longer going to buy the stereotypical Hawaii that has been sold to them for so long. And so if you look at products like what Bella is offering and many other authentic businesses in Hawaii, that is what our tourists want. That is what our visitors want, not just from Japan, but from around the world. And it happens to be that that's what we're in the business of. And that's what we've always been in the business of, is telling authentic stories and helping our clients to tell authentic stories about themselves as well. So Kona Brewing Company is a client of ours, and about 3 years ago, we launched Kona in the Japanese market very heavily. And what we were very proud to do was to be kind of the translator, the cultural translator for our mainland team from Kona Brewing Company, to let them understand what our clientele in Japan was looking for, what they would be interested in, how the branding would differ from the branding that we had on the mainland, and how we would tell that story. And that's been something that's been really fun for us, is inspiring, is to do that translation of culture for our mainland clients, and then to also create for folks like JTB, who we partner with often, to plan experiences that they are planning for their clients here, and to make sure that instead of just giving them the Waikiki, the luau on the lawn of a hotel, that we're taking that to a much deeper level, and we're giving them the cultural experience. We're taking groups into the lo'i, and so they can see what it's like to harvest. They're meeting with chefs who are making food that was all grown here and not flown here. And that's something that we're really proud to do for our clients and for our visitors.
It sounds wonderful. Also, what is unique about the two of you is that you have husbands who are involved in the business, and you're growing a family at the same time. There's got to be some concern about the balance. Do you have personal time? You have private time with your family when you're always working, especially with your husbands? So Amanda, why don't you start off? And a bit of disclosure here, I've known Mark and Mitchell since they were babies, and very proud of them as handsome young adults, really dedicated to their professions. So Amanda, take it away.
Sure. I guess, and I don't know, I've thought about this a lot, and whether I should really credit my mother with this. And as I mentioned, she quit her job as a real estate appraiser because she didn't want to miss out on our childhoods. And I don't think I understood that as I was starting my business and thinking about, I thought you either had to be kind of a housewife and a homemaker or a professional. And this is, back when I was graduating from college 20 years ago, I still was kind of stuck in that in my head. And I actually wrote a very large paper in college on that internal battle I was having. I was working for Edgy Lee, doing an internship in documentary filmmaking, and she was just such an inspiration, and what a businesswoman she was. I mean, she would sit at a table with a group of men and command the audience. This is how things are going to go. And everyone fell into place in that sense. And then I had my mother, who had given up her profession to show up for our family. And I thought, which one am I going to do? I want to be a mom, but I also am really drawn to be a professional. And it was through, I think, doing and looking at other women around me that I found that we can do both. And it's actually now, as a business owner, for both myself and for Bella, and her and I have had a lot of intimate conversations about this, it's actually now our kuleana, it's our responsibility to set that as the standard, that as a woman, you can be a mother and you can be a business owner. But what that takes, number one, is asking for help. And going back to us being, kind of stubborn from the beginning, that's something that motherhood teaches you, is you cannot do it alone. You have to ask for help, and you have to build a village that works for you. And anyone here who knows me or follows me on Instagram, I'm always talking about that I'm so thankful for my village. And I couldn't do the work that I do if I didn't have this diverse village. And we don't have a lot of family here on island, so it wasn't it wasn't gifted to us that there was going to be someone to automatically take care of our children. So we built a village to help us raise our children. And that village also included our employees, which for a long time, I felt like that, that wouldn't be a professional thing to do. But I said, you know what? No, that's old world. We're creating a new world here. And part of that is inclusive of our families and being proud that we have that. So you would see me 6 years ago with my little daughter, my first Eleanor, named after her grandmother, tied on to me in a carrier as I was leading a board meeting. And I could be completely taking the board through our agenda while my little one slept with her little mohawk sticking out of the top of her carrier. And I felt like it was important for me to do things like that, not just to inspire other women to do the same, but to change perhaps the stereotype for men who thought that wasn't possible. And I was still young at the time, and it was a pretty bold thing for me to do. But after we had our second daughter, and I got more comfortable and confident in that, I really make it part of what we do is to involve our daughters in the appropriate ways. So of course, you know, when we're running a huge gala, my children aren't running around in the back tripping people that are going to get a glass of wine. You know, we have people to help us in those times, but things where it makes sense for your children to be involved. Now looking at the way my daughters interact and the things they're able to do and the conversations they're able to have with adults, I really think that came from them being around these kinds of situations growing up. And my oldest, who's almost 7 now, is already the delegator. It's become very apparent that she also will be an entrepreneur and a CEO and a leader of a company someday. And I think that's because she's been surrounded by that. And in her mind, women run this world. And that's kind of a beautiful thing to me, that my daughter has always been surrounded by really strong wahine that are leading.
Good for you. Bella, the other strong wahine.
Well, definitely Amanda and I have spoken quite a bit about other running companies and our commitment to our community. And, you know, I think one of the things that was so interesting about the global international art world that I used to be in is that there were not a lot of women that had children. And if you did, you didn't talk about it. And, you know, from the very beginning, I brought my son. I was writing a review for our Asia Pacific. I go to the gallery and they see a 6-week-old and a baby Bjorn, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, we're here. You know, creating shows. I remember once I was giving a talk at a university, and, you know, my son was with me, and I just held him and rocked him back and forth. And I thought that was really important, that I could give quite an academic, like thoughtful, you know, lecture. And the whole time I had a baby too, because exactly to Amanda's point, like, I feel like it is our kuleana to show that you can do it all. And I don't believe in balance in the sense of like, this is family time, this is work. We're very privileged. We work a lot, probably until this February. We worked 7 days a week. We now work 6 days a week, and we're getting better at not having 16-hour days, more like 10-hour days. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's really, really tough, you know? And so inevitably everything sort of beautifully blends together. That we enjoy what we do. And our children, they were with us for our very first account. It was Natalie Axon when she was with Ed Kenny, and I brought my son Koa to sign that account. He gave out the little paper sheet, and I was there making the hardcore pitch, and that was such a door opener, because to go around and say you're in a tastemaker chef, and shortly after we signed with Mark, and he had the Hawaiian Airlines, to be like, oh yes, we're with Mark Noguchi and Ed Kenny, and then all the grocery stores are like, okay, you guys are good, you're with these tastemaker chefs. But all that being said, I would not be able to do what I do if I wasn't married to the most equitable partner. And I know Amanda is too. Like, my husband and I, we totally know, just because I am the woman and the mom, it doesn't mean that I do more housework. We are so equitable in that. So that's really important, because I know one of the challenges is often C-level women, they're out there, they're working, but they're still doing like, what are the statistics? It's awful. Like, the majority of the housework in the life. So if I wasn't in an equitable partnership, both professionally and personally, as we do work together, we're co-founders, I don't think I'd be this happy. So that is really, really, really amazing. And, you know, one of the challenges, I think, is just specifically within the vertical of beverage. It is quite male. It is quite white. It's really annoying. Before COVID, I was on the road 15 to 20 days a month selling our product and raising money. That's my role. I'm a story seller, and then my husband's the executor. And so he'd be at home, and on a rare occasion, he'd go to the continent for a business meeting. The minute it comes up that we have kids, I always get the sexist question. Oh, it must be so hard. You're separated. How do you do it? And I tell my husband, I'm like, honey, I mean, I know you only go on like 2 business trips a year, but like, brah, is anybody telling you, is it so hard? How do you do it? It's like, no, absolutely not. And then I get questions sometimes, and us women need to support other women and not, perpetuate just systemic sexism that sometimes we do to each other. I mean, questions like, oh, how do you trust your husband? It's like, he's not a moron. He's their dad. I trust him. And, just really little like microaggressions, like starting preschool and the teacher saying like, and if dad goes on a lot of work trips, let us know, because kids can be different and behave differently. And like just being like raising my hand and saying our family mom goes on a lot of work trips, just as a heads up. But I think, again, no woman means to do this. It's just something that's been inherited and it's part of our cultural mores. So let's change it. But we're really big on family. I don't care when my team members work. I care what they put out. If it takes them 20 hours that day to do a great project, or it takes them 3, it doesn't matter. And really, really, really just trust-based. It's about what you turn in. And, Ohana is everything. A lot of our team members were still very small, but they do have young children. And I hate it when they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, my kid. I'm like, you should never say sorry about your kid. That is totally normal and beautiful. And yeah. We just need to create more environments where you feel comfortable talking about your children and totally kicking butt at the same time. And I love that Amanda and I are very committed to that. And I know other emerging startups that have those same values.
Well, that's wonderful. We have just about 5 minutes left, but I have one more big question to ask both of you. When you look at our world today, with all the riots going on, the systemic racism, police brutality, businesses falling apart, autocratic rulers shutting down journalists, a lot of human abuses. When you look at a world like that, this is the world your children are going to grow up in. How do you feel? I mean, what are you going to tell your kids when they are ready to fly away from you, from your protection? We only have 5 minutes left, so 2 minutes each. Let's start with Amanda.
Gosh, I love that we're ending it on the warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
I think that's really why my husband and I do the work that we do. And we could have chose a lot of different paths, but working within our community to build up positive, strong, determined leaders is for our children and for their children and for their children and the next generations. And we also understand that those before us have been through many challenges as well. To us, they don't look as same and as severe and as intense as what we're dealing with now. But I don't believe that there weren't mothers who also worried just as much as we do now about the future that is ahead. And I think that that's why we do the work that we do, is to try and build a village of people who will no longer accept what has become the norm in this country. And I think that even looking to other countries, nobody is perfect and we're all trying to figure this out together. But if we can be the bridge makers and we can continue to inspire people to care about this world and to care about one another, that's the work we're going to keep on doing. And I know that if we all commit to that, we're going to have a different world for our daughters and for the next generations in that. So my advice to the group is to be nice to people. As I say, live aloha. If we all just say that to ourselves when we start out in the morning and when we go to bed at night, and think about what we can do to live aloha and to show that to others. And I know it sounds a little silly. It's so simple, but it's so true. And even on my worst of days, that's what I repeat to myself, is how can we be more kind, not just to people, but to our earth as well.
That's right. Bella.
I think, with our children, we're just really, we don't tiptoe around what's going on in the world. We have very direct conversations that sometimes might be a little intense, but we're raising them that whatever you're doing can only be about you. You are connected to our community. You're connected to a global community. You're connected to INA, and find what you love and then do the most good you can do. And you have to really come from a mentality of like all ships rise. And our core company value at Shaka Tea is like, be the aloha you wish to see in the world. Be the kindness, the goodness, the humility, the respect, the love. And that's what we're trying to instill not only in our company, but in our family. I swear they're so interconnected. It's like Shaka Tea is the third sibling here with our children. And, the last point is we really, are letting them know how privileged they are to live in a democracy and to vote. And they come into the ballot box since they were very little with us, and they know all about it, and that you have to vote for the change and never be afraid to speak up for something that is unjust, even if it makes you unpopular.
Well, thank you both so much, because as women entrepreneurs, you really are agents of change. And it's not just you. We are all doing this for our next generation. So with that, I want to thank Bella and Amanda for really an inspiring hour. And I'm going to turn it back to Reina for closing comments. But thank you both very much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. As usual, you've always done a fantastic job moderating our many programs. And this is probably your first virtual one for Jash. So, thank you very much, Barbara. And Amanda and Bella, Bella, if we can see you again, I am so awestruck by both of you. Amanda, I've known since the beginning of the year, and we are so privileged and blessed to be able to work with Amanda and her team at UMU. And with Bella, I was introduced to Bella by one of my peers at Japan America Society, Dallas. And when we wanted to do this, I thought of Bella immediately. And they're both so gracious. They're busy, as you can tell, busy women. Yet they took the time to do this. So thank you so much, Amanda and Bella, for sharing your philosophy in life, in business, and and sharing a bit of you, and hope to be able to continue working with you both and getting to know you even better. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone for attending this virtual program. As you know, we've had to pivot to virtual, and Jash is a organization that is accustomed to doing everything in person, and we've really had to change course. But we feel very happy and confident that we've been able to bring you good quality programming, and we will continue to do so. So for my sales pitch next week is our next virtual program, and it is our Jash Natsumatsuri on August 13th, Thursday, 6 p.m. You can register to attend for free at our website, www.jashhawaii.org. And if you want to, we are also offering a specially crafted Matsuri Bento created by Izakaya Nombe in Kapahulu, or Zigu in Waikiki. And so if you register to attend and you would love to eat a bento while you're attending Natsumatsuri, please order your bento. There's also sake option, and we would really love for all of you to join us. It is planned and coordinated by our next generation of Jash leaders, which Amanda and Bella are in that's where they are in that demographic, and they're the next geners are excited to have you come. So please join us. And last but not least, and if you are able, please help Jash with a small donation so that we can continue to bring you these great quality programs. We love seeing everyone virtually, and we welcome your comments and suggestions to us. You know how to get a hold of us, so please let us know what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear about, and we look forward to seeing you all next week at Natsumatsuri. Thank you again, Amanda, Bella, and Barbara, and have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank
Otsukare-sama
you.
deshita. Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.